What's your favourite Grand Prix? I get that question asked a lot. I'll tell you my answer in just a moment. What is my favourite Grand Prix? Well, I get that question a lot, but I don't really have one race that I'd put above everything else. I have a few that I love and one or two that I just can't stand. But anyway, let's focus on the ones that I like, and this one, there are very few better than it, Monaco Grand Prix. It's set in the beautiful Monte Carlo city, and here it is, the view from one of these buildings, and isn't it magnificent? And at dawn, it's perhaps even more beautiful with all those boats in the harbour. It attracts a glamour crowd, interestingly dressed people, stars from all over the world. They make their way to this enclave. It's full of the rich and famous, and really it's a beautiful looking crowd that gets along there. It has one of the best amber lounge functions of all year, and you get these high fashion designers providing fashion shows on the runway. You get stars like Pamela Anderson here in the crowd. Kate Upton, I photographed her. There's a fashion parade for bikinis and dresses, and then you get the TV commentators, the females anyway, who come along and star in their own fashion parade. Here's Giselle, that's Mara, Amanda from CNN, and the drivers take part as well. Not all of the drivers, not the top rung guys, but these are mainly the newbies, the rookies, and in this particular year you have the likes of Esteban Ocon looking very sharp, Pascal Wehrlein, Daniil Kvyat, a recent father, Marcus Ericsson having the time of his life, Stoffel van Dorn, who's no longer racing in F1, and this young fella, one of the first times I think I shot Charles, was at the Amber Lounge Fashion Parade. Doesn't he look smooth? I also like the race because we get grid girls. Yes, there are also grid boys as well, and both complement each other, and they look hellishly smooth, and they're often lining the route for the drivers' parade to welcome the drivers back out onto the truck. But really, it's the boats, it's the money, the obscene amount of money that's parked up in this harbour. Monstrous boats, 50, 60, 70 metres long. This was a boat, I actually stayed on a boat one year, and if you get the chance to do that, do it. It's quite a marvellous experience because you don't even need to go off the boat to watch the race. This one was moored at Tabac, I think this was. And next door, here we have Mika Hakkinen, who is entertaining groups of people on this particular yacht, and they've even got one of his cars up on the deck there for a bit of added glamour. The drivers will arrive by boat too because everything's set around the water. Here's Max and his father Joss arriving by boat. McLaren had their own special number 55 boat here. I gather on the other side it was probably number 4 for Lando this year. Here's Kate Massetti Zanini along with her boyfriend Pierre Gasly and Jacques arriving at the back of the energy station. Sebastian Vettel arrived by boat, and oftentimes when the drivers have to do a corporate appearance, normally that's done in the paddock at a normal race, but here they get these drivers to come via little tenders and climb up the side of the boat, and this one was the one next to the one I stayed on, with Valtteri Bottas getting on board. And if you can't stay on a boat for 4 or 5 days, don't discount it, because you can actually buy packages where you can go on board for a day or 2 days and watch the racing from a boat. It's a real spectacle, and it's completely different from obviously sitting in a grandstand, because there's food, there's drink, there's a bit of room, and you're spending it with like-minded people. The other thing that's interesting about the Monaco track is the fact that at night it turns into a normal street. In other words, the racing stopped, cars get to use it because it is such a small place, and they even have down at Rascasse a full-on thumping nightclub area where thousands get down there and enjoy the festivities. When you look at from a building here, you can see that the pit arrangement in Monaco is slightly different, and it's really quirky in so much as normally you have the pits, the garage, then you have the engineers that sit on the other side on the wall and look over the track. But as you can see here, that the pits actually face to the left over here, and you've got the cars racing here, so they have to have a different setup altogether so that their engineers can see what's going on the pit straight, and they have other people, I gather, looking at what's going on in the pit, so it adds that extra complexity. Here's Daniel Ricciardo walking down pit lane, and what I do like about this is the fact that to get from the hospitality suite to the garage often involves a very long walk. Some drivers choose to ride it, like Nico Hulkenberg, takes out much of the legwork there by heading off on his little bicycle. But let's get back to pit lane. It's an unusual pit lane, there's no doubt of that. It's quite tight and one has to be careful because there isn't much room. You can shoot from the balconies of various hotels around the place, and I've done that before, where you get shots like this. And here you can see that the cars pass on the left-hand side, going away from the camera, and come back on the right-hand side at different levels. See the height drop there? And if you're sitting in the grandstand opposite, you'll get a view of the cars going down pit lane in the background, but in the foreground, they come right to left for you. So it's unusual in that respect. I really love this photo, and I should take more of these shots, and I'll be mindful next year, because I love the background here where you get all of the buildings and you get the car in the foreground big. And then there's a wider shot of how it looks. And at night, if you look down here, this is where the paddock is. And it's a very cramped paddock. It's underneath that. So the drivers have to navigate probably 300 metres to go from their garage, which will be down there out of sight. They come over this bridge here. I hope you can see this with my mouse. And then they walk up pit lane. Now this gives us tremendous opportunities to shoot the drivers, because a lot of the times, if they're going from the hospitality suite to the garage, in particular like the US GP last week, it's a very short walk. It might be 20 metres, and that's not long for us to get shots. You have to be right on your game. The other thing that's quite incredible is this marvellous piece of hospitality housing for Red Bull. This is the Red Bull Energy Station, and it is monstrous. It's actually built in Italy, and it's floated down the Mediterranean Sea and into the harbour. And it is, if you get an invite into the Red Bull Energy Station, you're in pretty good company, because there's all sorts of people. There's a pool on the top level, and here's Daniel Ricciardo, ended up in that pool after he won. When was that? 2017? 2018, I beg your pardon, after he won at Monaco. And this is a view from the water, and at night it really sparkles. There you go. Now, Sergio Perez walking down pit lane. In the background you can see on the hill lots of grass, lots of greenery, but in there are people. Now during the day, normally there's bugger all happening, and come Grand Prix time, people stake out their spots. See those chairs there? People have been down there and chained them up to the trees because they want to make sure they get a good view. And as you can see the final turn in all its glory. You can see the pathway over here where the drivers walk, and I'll tell you a little story about that in a second, but it's chock-a-block come race day, and certainly on the Saturday for quali, and not quite as popular during the other sessions. But see this fella here? This is Billy Hill. Now Billy's a bit of a character. He hasn't been back for a couple of years, but he wears this silver helmet. And what he does is he stands up there with a loud hailer and he talks to the drivers as they go over that bridge. And he'll get Kimi's attention in this instance, and he'll rib him on, give us a wave, give us a wave. And eventually the drivers relent and they turn around and acknowledge Billy. And it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. In fact, I would have liked to have gone up and interviewed him, because I could, because he's actually outside the track. But this is the grid. And it is a very tight grid, because it's really only, I'm thinking, 3 and a bit cars wide in essence. And come race day, it's chock-a-block full of people. Everybody wants to be on there. So let's take you around a lap, because photographically for me, it is a really lovely track. And I like it because there's not a huge distance to go to the far end of the track. It's walkable within 15 minutes. And everything's quite close. It's very tight. I don't think there's a track that we get closer to the cars on than the Monaco track. So here they are, coming up the hill after the first turn, heading towards Beau Rivage. And it's one of the very rare places where you get them coming at you, directly at you, at speed. And the photos we get are quite lovely. If you go low and shoot between the bottom rung of Armco and the second bottom rung, you get these crazy shots where you can see all of the rubber on the road and the cars quite low. And in the background, you get buildings. And as you probably heard me say before, backgrounds are what it's all about when it comes to F1 photography. So you get these tall buildings, you can shoot portrait, and these shots are great for doing wallpapers on my Instagram page. And you can see all those people on the balcony. Look, there's thousands of the buggers. And here's the shot I'm talking about here, going up Beau Rivage towards Massenet at the very top. And this is shot with a tilt shift lens, and as you can see, the boats on the right have moved out 10 metres. Now they are 44 metres or more, those boats, and they have to move back from the water's edge. When there's not a session on, they can move back and be right up against the dock. But they do that because in case a car comes over, you don't want them going into a crowd of people on a boat. Instead, they're going to end up in the drink, but they do have a little tender that goes backwards and forwards up there, which has divers on board. In the odd chance that a driver does happen to go over the edge, and it would be very rare because I think there's a pretty high fence there, there is some safety measures in place. But look at these balconies, every one of them chock-a-block on race day with people. Now, if you own one of those balconies, I imagine you're much in demand by your mates, or you rent it out to people and get a huge quid. And I must say that is one of the drawbacks of the Monaco race. It is horribly expensive to stay in Monaco. So a lot of people end up staying in places like Menton or in Nice, and they get the train in. There's a train that drops you right off at the heart of the track. So it's no real inconvenience to be staying outside of Monaco. A bit further up towards, this is towards Massenet now. They once again come straight at you. There's a pedestrian crossing there that's rather unusual. And as they get a little bit further on, they go past these high-end fashion boutiques, which makes for an interesting shot. And you'll notice there is no wire fence on the inside there, which is a little unusual. You wouldn't be able to do that at too many tracks, but Monaco is special. It really is the glamour event of the year. And when you shoot low through the Armco, you get a bit of the background of the city in there, you get the people up on the balconies, and you get a different look, and I really like those low shots. A bit further around, probably only another 100 metres or so, you get that lovely castle in the background, or that old building up on the hill, which is quite a lovely look. And then you get this hotel. What is this? Is this Palais de Royal? It could well be, and locals will know more about it. And a bit further here around, you get very close to the cars, and they're going at a fair clip. They're probably doing well over 100 k's an hour as they come around there. And as you can see, we're probably only a metre or so away from them. And then they head down the hill with these lovely shots of the hotel in the background and those quirky lights. Now, of course, you'd love as a photographer not to have that wire fence in the way, but yeah, it's there for safety, so you wear that fact, and occasionally you'll get a photographer in there. Tabard in the background. As they head down that hill, you've got a shot here with the police station behind, and looking head on, the cars come down the hill. Now there's a quirky thing about this particular section of track. See up here, the cars actually take this route where they come around here to avoid a bump in the road. I'm not sure what that bump's from. It may well be a tree root, I don't know, but there is a bump that they all avoid. A little bit further on, after they've been around Mirabeau, they head back down the hill towards the Fairmont Hotel. And once again, we are quite close to them, probably 2 metres away. There is no wire above the fence, and it's a great opportunity for us to get shots like this. And then they hit the hairpin. The wide shot here taken from the Fairmont Hotel shows just how tight that corner is. Now, you can see here, there's an area of trees. I'll show you some shots in a second that are taken from that. This is from the ground level at the hairpin, and this is taken from inside those trees, which we can get to. Now there is no fence at all there, which is quite unusual. A little bit further along the track, they take a right-hander here, and as you can see, the fence just finishes, and the shot from above shows that they're now driving on the pavement. Now, if they got right over to the right, and I don't think there's a shot in this that shows, yes, there's one here. There is actually some windows here, but I don't think any cars ever hit that. But that's an unusual thing. And then they go into the tunnel. Now, the tunnel is quite a remarkable thing. It's the only track that has a tunnel in it throughout the calendar, and you get them shooting into the tunnel, so the car's in light going into darkness. Never had much luck shooting inside the tunnel, although I quite like these shots here where you can see the vapour trail coming off the rear wing. And then they get to the end of the tunnel and they come out into light. Now there are a number of shots here that I just adore. This one's okay, but I think when you get down the hill a little bit and you shoot back up towards the tunnel, there's an opportunity to get some lovely shots here with the lights in the background, a couple of opportunities. Sebastian Vettel in 2018 kicking up some sparks behind him, as is Carlos Sainz. But these are the shots I love, and this is probably only about 30 metres outside the tunnel. I'm shooting with a 135mm fixed lens from memory, and standing above the fence, shooting through the wire, you get that angle. but my preferred shot is to go low, shoot through the Armco and get this rather amazing view with darkness in the background and some lights. And for me, one of my best shots this year was this one of Lewis Hamilton coming out of the tunnel. It just seemed to tick every box with some lovely lighting on the car because the sun was out, and that's probably a vital thing. You need the sun to be out to give you that extra punch, and the darkness and the lights behind. Shooting from inside the tunnel with a very long lens, you get the cars going down towards the Nouvelle Chicane, and in the background, nothing but boats. It is a phenomenal shot, and unlike anything else that's available anywhere in the world on the F1 calendar. So here's the chicane, and they brake rather heavily as they get there, but this is an amazing opportunity to get the closest of anywhere we ever get. Now sometimes those, no, in fact I do tell a lie because there's a shot in a couple of seconds I think is even more amazing. Here you can see that the Armco there is painted orange, and here it is. It's, what is it, waist height, just above waist height for me and my son, and we are allowed to stand inside that little hooky bit, and the cars come ripping around the corner. Here's a wider shot with Alberto Crippa, a famed Italian photographer, standing inside there, and an even wider shot from further back that shows you how the whole thing's set out. Now you'll notice here that there is absolutely no fence, but there's some cars ready to come out that provide assistance. But a lot of times you'll see us lying on the ground here and you think, how is that safe? Well, there's no way on earth a car's going to come around and clean us up like that. They'd have to be doing a very slow speed and actually make an effort to do it. So we are totally safe, and we get to shoot the cars going away from us. I quite like this shot, and it's very much a marquee shot where you see the car and you see the hill and all of the buildings and some of the boats. So that's pretty much a shot that everybody will get each year, and it's an easy one to get. A little bit further on, after they've gone round to back, and they have all these boats in the background. As I mentioned before, these boats are backed right up to the edge. Now, unlike the other side where they've got to stay 10 metres away while cars are on track, for some reason this is an area that's not high risk, so those boats can stay there moored all day, although people can't get on and off a boat. But as I was staying on one and I have a tabard, I was able to get on and off if I wanted to, which I didn't, but it was always handy to know. And here's the swimming pool section of the track, and the cars will come over this curb and they'll head towards this area here. And at that point, they're heading straight towards me, standing in this photographic hole. It's an amazing experience because they're coming at some sort of speed hard at us. And then a little bit further on, they exit swimming pool here, and look at the proximity of the photographers to the cars. It's quite an amazing photo, and sometimes they'll actually brush the fence here with the Armco with their wheels, so they're not very far away at all, and it gives us opportunities to take some stunning photos. A little bit further on, they come around here, this left-hander, and this is actually, what are we, turn 15, heading into turn 15, and they get their wheels off the ground. There's Sebastian Vettel doing the same thing as Nico Hülkenberg, and it's quite an impressive shot. Those shots were taken from above the fence, but if I duck down here and shoot between the Armco, between the top and the middle rung of Armco barrier, you get these shots here with a little bit of dark framing, and it's dark because there's no light on that side of the fence, so it comes across as black, and in bright sunshine the car is beautifully lit. And then they get to Rascasse, which I mentioned before is a rousing nightclub come the end of the day, and the track's closed, and that'll stay open until 3 or 4 in the morning before they clean it up. Here's the Paddock Club in the background, cars heading right on the penultimate corner, getting into a bit of a strife. Here is Robert Kubica during last year's race, and then they head back down the pit straight where they take the finishing flag. And have a look at these apartments up the top here. If you've got one of these apartments, you've got a lot of friends come race weekend, haven't you? They'll be queuing up for days to get into your place. Unlike a lot of the tracks, the cars don't come back into pit lane. They stop on the track, and no crowd is allowed anywhere near this. So you have security guards both ends stopping people flooding onto the track. Daniel Ricciardo last year, quite a scene when he won, the 3 cars situated on the track. Lewis Hamilton in this year's race was quite popular. Once again, a shot taken from a building, all of the photographers down here in front, and it's a really amazing look, one that we don't get at any other race. So when people say to me, what's your favourite event? I say, well, look, I like a few. Certainly Monaco is right up there for the glitz, the glamour. It's not great for racing, but as a photographer, we don't really see that much in the way of racing. We just see cars going past, and I see great photographic backgrounds, a great place to be, and if you've got a budget to stay in Monaco, there's nothing quite like it on the calendar. Remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my YouTube videos. Your comments are always appreciated. Own any of my images by heading to prostarpics.com. You'll find my blogs and my podcasts go up on kimillman.com, sort of all over the place, I know, but these are the best ways to get you this information that you appear to be enjoying, and pics live from the track and during the week on Instagram @KimIllman. Thank you for watching and stay passionate.